Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today, we're talking about the Grieg Piano Concerto. Oh, whatever happened to the Grieg Piano Concerto? We've talked about this before. It used to be ubiquitous. I mean, it's still played at like Pop's concerts, I think, and so, in the provinces and whatnot, but you just don't see many recordings of the Grieg Piano Concerto coming out, new ones, fresh ones. It's such a beautiful work, such a great piece, just an amazing work. I think people look down on it a little bit. I remember vividly when I was a kid watching like the Miss America pageant. And the Miss America pageant, unlike Miss Universe, where they're just showing off their pulchritude, has a talent competition. And I used to love the talent competition because the talent competition usually consisted of three different things. It was either singing, which some of them could and some of them couldn't, or baton twirling, which some of them could and some of them couldn't. The baton twirling was always fun, or piano playing. And I mean, every so often you'd find some very interesting, contestant who had some weird talent, like spot welding or scuba diving. But it was hard to do that on stage. You know what I mean? And you wouldn't exactly call it a talent necessarily. Anyway, during the competition, one of the contestants was a pianist, a piano player, and she played because you only have like 3 minutes to do your talent competition. She did the 3-minute solo piano Grieg Piano Concerto. And I remember watching this thing just because I always loved this piece, and I've known it since I was like 5. My first recording of it, I think, was Philippe Entremont, actually. My mother had the record. And she played da 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 yum ba ba da 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 dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba da 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 boom. It was over. It was amazing. She was like the whole thing in 3 minutes, and she was a capably trained student pianist who did Griegy bits. Of course, I thought the whole thing was hysterically funny. And so I just had to share that with you because it was the go-to concerto. But it was also a concerto that I think has been regarded nowadays as either too easy for heavy-duty virtuosi. They wanted to Rachmaninoff and Beethoven and Brahms. It's just, or alternately, just not deep, not profound. Somehow it doesn't have, the sublimity of these great concertos. You can't moon over the Grieg Concerto. It's got to flow. It's got to move. It has, the slow movement is exquisite. It's absolutely beautiful. But, you can't make a meal of it. It's just not what this piece is. It is a fabulously beautiful, nationalistic, and it's they're ethnic, and it's the cast of its melodies, amazing work. And when you listen to a great performance of it, and you listen to it with fresh ears, if you haven't heard it in a while, go back and listen to it. It doesn't deserve to be taken for granted. And this performance does not take it for granted. It's Lief of Andsnes with the Bergen Philharmonic and Dmitri Kitayenko conducting. This is a fabulous performance. Now, Andsnes, of course, shot himself in the foot. He did it again. He did it again with Maris Janssens and the Berlin Phil. This one was originally made for Virgin Classics. And the other one was on regular EMI. And so that's the one everyone paid attention to. But this earlier one, I think, has a freshness and a spontaneity that the later one doesn't quite have. Jed and I, by the way, sort of disagree on that. You can read my review of this on ClassicsToday.com, where I talk about that. Jed marginally prefers the later version, but I like this earlier one because I like the things that Jed doesn't. It's interesting, actually. It happens that way. The accelerando into the second subject of the first movement, for example, and the tendency to simply, treat certain sections as individual entities, maybe not as unified as as later on, because he did change his interpretation, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. I mean, he matured and he had a different view of the work, and it's a very legitimate view of the work, and it's a gorgeous performance, that Berlin-Janssens performance. It really is. They're both terrific in their own ways. But this one, I just think, has a sense of discovery and not taking the music for grantedness that the piece really needs. Now, these various Grieg's concerto things, they were recoupled all kinds of different ways by EMI, which made things even more confusing. This particular disc has a wonderful Liszt second concerto. And that's wonderful too. I mean, it's a great thing too, because you always get the first concerto. No one ever plays the second, like, separately. I mean, in a way that gives it the individual attention that it deserves, because it's also a masterpiece, a wonderful work, and a bigger and slightly more ambitious piece than the first concerto. And then you get 6 lyric pieces, which Andsnes plays marvelously. And, it's not because he's Norwegian that this is so great. It's great because he's a wonderful artist and a thinking artist, and somebody who was able to take this warhorse and do something really, really fresh and original with it. And that's what you look for in one of the greatest recordings ever. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.